Hello, everybody. Hello, good to see you. Welcome. Just getting my rings on. Hello, hi, Deborah. Good to see you again. Hello. Yes, I'm back in my corner tonight, everybody. So it should be fun. Yes, I'm back. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Just getting everything set up here. Yes, he was told. We had that hearing today, and it was made pretty clear, I think, that he needs to kind of keep a lid on it. We will see if that actually happens, but do I change them daily? No, I don't. Actually, I've had these on for a few days now, but I do change them pretty frequently, probably more often than most people. I would have to admit to that. So hello. Getting myself sorted out here. What is he allowed to say? I think it sounds to me like it's pretty much the same as what the New York order was, which is he can't say anything about opposing counsel's family, or the judge, or any of the court people involved. So it sounds very similar to what they've got set up in the New York case. Yes, I think so. Yep. Yes, I had green on the other night. I did. Yep. And then I had gray. I've had these on for a few days now, so I'm pretty happy about it. Yeah, he's gonna zip it. He does. Well, I mean, we'll see if he does or not. I don't know if it's even possible, but he's supposed to at least. Minnesota. Oh, love that. Welcome. Witnesses on a gag order. I think, on his initial recognizance, right, which she's mentioning before, it already states he's not supposed to be talking with witnesses. So she's just reiterating, hey, my order, I mean it. So I think I didn't, Kristen, I didn't. I had them off, but then I put them back on again. So back and forth. I know, always keeping everybody guessing. Can the gag order be appealed? I don't think so. Judges get a lot of leeway when it comes to running their courtrooms. So I think for this situation, I don't see this as appealable at all. The judge has to make that determination. And she even had a hearing on it today and made that determination. So yes. Oh, I have just all different kinds. I'm not really loyal to any particular brand for nails. So all kinds. But she was, oh, thank you. Thank you so much. So the judge was pretty clear that, he can talk if he wants to talk, that's fine. But court personnel, opposing counsel, all of those primary players are not allowed to be kind of presented the way that he's been doing it in public. So it just extremely similar, very similar to the New York case as well. So if anyone's outside of the sphere, other people, other attorneys, whatever, that's fine. But opposing counsel, this judge, this court, it needs to stay on the down low. So hopefully he will mind his P's and Q's with that. We'll see what happens. Hello, everybody. Hello. Yes, so that's the update out of the DC case. Yes. If glitching, please go out and back in. Yes, absolutely. That really helps. It helps a lot. So thank you, Deborah. Yes, good reminder. Yes, we will. I'm just getting started, Navy vet. What about witness intimidation? Yes, exactly. That was in her original order way back in the beginning, where she had said none of that was acceptable. So she's reiterating that. And during the hearing, she reiterated it as well. She said, look, we let you out on your own recognizance, and you agreed that you wouldn't harass anybody. And so I'm going to hold you to that. What will happen next? Well, we wait. I have no idea when he will be unable to help himself, but at some point, we wait. And then once he does break her order today that's still yet to come out, we only have just a piece put into the docket, but we don't have her official order. It says here the order is forthcoming, so that'll be out soon. But, his bond could be revoked. He could be held in contempt. There's lots of different things that she could do. So the government would file a motion asking for sanctions, and then the judge would go forward on that. Can hiring you to defend me be considered jury intimidation? Maybe. Is he back on Twitter? Now, I don't know. I do not ever frolic in the land of the twits and the tweets, the tweeters. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm just not a Twitter person. So I just don't know. I I went in for a few weeks in the beginning and I was like, this is unpleasant. I'm going to go away. So I really don't know what's going on in the Twitter world, in the tweeters. Oh my gosh. The land of the twits. I'm sorry. I apologize. That probably didn't come out okay. Yes, Deborah. Sorry about that. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. So I'm not in the Twitter universe, but I do like to kind of drive around in the other worlds. Really, really? Okay. Yes. Hello, Taya. Good to see you. Good to see you. I call it the twisted world. Yeah, it was, yeah. I don't know. I think it's great. I have some dear people in my world that are all about the Twitters, but it's just not my cup of tea. It's, everybody has their own that they like, and I've got nothing against anybody, but it's just not for me. It's too much work. Yes, I do have liquid refreshments available. Thank you very much for asking. Yes, tonight is blue raspberry flavored water. I'm very excited about that. Oh my gosh. Yes. Nobody ever thought he'd be charged. Oh, I know. That's so true though. So true. So, right. So let me go ahead and just dive in here. So today we had the hearing, the elongated muskrat. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh, I'm loving the names. I just love all of them. Every single one of them I'm adoring. Oh my gosh. All right. So we had a hearing today. Today was the big hearing on the government's motion regarding out-of-state comments that were being made, right? So we had that hearing today. It was at 10 o'clock. And then the judge came back and after the hearing and she said, yes, you need to knock it off. So the order is coming. We don't have a copy of the order quite yet, but the hearing was held. And my understanding is, we went through that original order, original motion that the government had requested certain things regarding kind of canvassing the venere, if people remember that. And she kind of set that aside and said, I don't want to worry about that right now. We're not going to deal with it. But when it came to these questions about him making comments about opposing counsel, the court personnel, those kinds of things, that's unacceptable. So she just reiterated that again. Those kinds of extrajudicial statements are not allowable. So that was just reinforced again today with this new order. So who knows how long it'll take before that is violated. We will see. But that was her order. We're kind of waiting on that official order to be released. And when it is, I will go through that. So I think New York really kind of had opened the door for this because it's very similar to what the judge put into place in New York and just saying, look, we're not going to do this. And it's very typical. It's what we always do in court. This is what's been unusual has been the amount that he's been allowed to say without being called out about it. That's been unusual. So putting this kind of a restriction in place, this is normal. This is what we normally would do. So, try me, buddy. Yeah, exactly. She's I'm not playing here. So she's not playing. Yes, I have a sticky note. I'm going to move on to our next. Absolutely, Daisy. I appreciate the reminder. So tonight, everybody, I have the Colorado case. Now, we'd spoken a little bit before. I had gone through probably just the first maybe 25% of this case actually on YouTube, but I have not gone through the whole case, first of all. And second, I've not done it here on TikTok. So I thought I would take everybody through this case from beginning to end, the petition. It's a very interesting case. It had a motion to dismiss was just filed, but it passed. The judge said, no, I'm not going to dismiss it, and it is on the docket. So I'm not sure when it's actually going to be set, but it did pass that motion to dismiss, which is that very first hurdle. There have been a few other 14th Amendment cases filed. In particular, there's one in Minnesota that's probably the most hardy. There was one filed in Florida that was dismissed outright, and there were a few others that just have not made it past this motion to dismiss. So this is the first one to make it past a motion to dismiss. So this is very exciting, and there's a lot of information included in here that, I'm not sure everybody really knows about. So I'll kind of take you through this, take you through the information. I will be careful with my words tonight just to make sure I don't trigger anything negative. So if I point but don't say a word, it just means I'm just being a little extra cautious. I think I probably get a limit on how many times I can say certain words before, they come for me. So I will be careful about that. Thank you for doing this. Oh yeah, of course. Now I do have the indictment, the Menendez indictment. That one I do plan to do this week as well. This week is a great week to kind of catch up on these very interesting things because we are kind of waiting on things in the Trump cases. So this is a perfect time for us to go through that material. We do have the voir dire process starting, the jury questionnaires, the very, very first piece starting in Georgia on Friday. So that will be very, very interesting. We won't get to see that, but I am planning right now tentatively to do kind of a special presentation on voir dire on Friday. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. And when more details come, I will let you know. But this week we will go through, tonight we'll go through this one. We'll see. I should be able to make it through, but we'll see how everyone's doing. So I may need to split this into two, but we'll do the 14th Amendment tonight, and then I will do the other indictment then as well this week, as well as kind of reviewing what's going on. So they're getting a little strict on guidelines. Yes, they are. Yes. And so it's just certain words, that I have to be careful when I'm saying the words, because they go out into the world. So I just have to be a little bit careful. So just note that if I'm skipping over a word, that just means, I'm just trying to be a little extra safe. So it should be, we should be okay though. I've been through here. I've been through this a couple of times. There is some new information and there are some pictures that I probably will cover up pieces of, just because, that's just not my style. Nobody needs more trauma after a long day at work. So, but let's go ahead and get started then, everybody. Again, this is the docket. I do have a sticky note ready right here, everybody. I even made it a little bit bigger this time. Look at that. I was thinking of you, Deborah. It's like, would Deborah like a little bigger sign this time? I think so. Let's do it. So I made a little bit bigger one. But tonight, we'll go ahead and go through this Colorado case. And kind of work through what it is. Now we have the petitioners here. We have Anderson, Priola, Camarada, which I'm going to say incorrectly every time, Wright, and Castillion. And the respondents are Griswold in her official capacity as the Colorado Secretary of State and Donald Trump. So those are the two defendants, the Secretary of State in Colorado and Trump. All right. So, of course, Deborah, of course, you're welcome. Oh my goodness. All right. So here we go, everybody. Let me give you the overview. We'll just take this one step at a time. Again, it's fascinating. This whole case is absolutely fascinating. And again, I think it really is probably the strongest case. Well, they did try a motion to dismiss and that was denied. So we are on the docket. We'll get started with an introduction. We've got parties, the jurisdiction and venue. I'll kind of skip through these. I won't go too into depth in that because I want to get into the rest of the pieces because it's really important. Factual background. So the first piece will be before the 2020 election. Trump lays the groundwork to reject the election results if he loses and deploy political violence to stay in power. Number 2, after the 2020 election, President Trump refuses to admit defeat and inflames his supporters with the lie that the election was stolen from them. Number 3, President Trump leads a broad-based effort to pressure, coerce, and intimidate state and local officials to unlawfully overturn these results. President Trump oversees a scheme to send fake slates of these people to Congress and pressures Vice President Pence to unlawfully obstruct the January 6th certification proceeding based on these things. President Trump summons tens of thousands of enraged supporters, including these kinds of people, to travel to Washington, D.C. for a wild protest on this date to stop the steal. A violent mob summoned, incited, and aided by this person attacks the U.S. Capitol to stop the lawful transfer of presidential power. So those are going to be our factual background, and they'll take us through this, and I'll walk you through the details they've got set out. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, so we will go into that. We'll look at the language. I've got the Constitution here, so we can look at that. Former President Trump is disqualified under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, so then they will set out their arguments next. So the former president took an oath as an officer of the United States to support the Constitution of the United States. Remember, this was one of the things that has hit the news lately, where he has said just because he took an oath doesn't mean he needed to uphold it. Maybe you have seen that in the media, but he did take the oath. And then there was a mob attack on the Capitol and surrounding events, which constituted an insurrection against the U.S. Constitution. Sub A, it is a matter of public record that the 6th was an insurrection. And B, the 6th attack and preceding mob mobilization and incitement constituted an insurrection against the Constitution within the meaning of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. And next we've got number 3, the former president engaged in the January 6th insurrection. So again, this is just the introduction here, the overview of what issues we will be going into here. Subsection A, knowingly and voluntarily aided and incited the insurrection before January 6th, and he knowingly and voluntarily aided and incited the insurrection on January 6th, and then they set out how he did that. So first we've got the Stop the Steal rally, we have the 2:24 p.m. tweet, the exploitation of violence and chaos at the Capitol, the failure to authorize or deploy a federal response, and failure to timely instruct the mob to leave the Capitol. Now, if any of you were with me when I read his motion in the DC case, I'm getting them mixed up. Hold on. There's a civil case for officers that were harmed and representatives that were harmed against Mr. Trump, which is proceeding. And one of the issues, though, that they claimed was his inaction, and the court has dismissed that. So I'm not sure this particular claim will be particularly strong, but we will see. The office of the president is an office under the United States from which he is disqualified. Claims for relief, we've got 2 counts here. Count 1, regarding relief here, and then count 2 for declaratory relief. Again, they're going to be asking them to take him off of the ballot. So then we've got the prayer at the very end. All right, so there's the overview, everybody. No, Lewis, this isn't the gag order. She's not actually written out that gag order yet. We don't have that on file. She has done hearing and made an order from the bench, but we don't have an official order yet. All right, so again, this is the Colorado case on the 14th Amendment and removing Trump from the ballot in Colorado. What is that prayer? A prayer is what we're asking the court to do. So it's at the very, very end of our petitions. We call it a prayer. It's very archaic, and it just means we're praying for relief. And it literally is from Old England when you ask the court for whatever you're asking them for. We call it a prayer. So it's at the very end when we are asking for relief. So yes, it's literally called a prayer, and you are literally praying to the court that they grant that. And it just is very archaic, and it's something that stayed within our legal documentation. So it's just one of those traditions that carries over. I'm not a particularly big fan, but that's something that's just not changed yet. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right in. Hydrate first. Dear court God. Kind of. All right, here we go. Petitioners, Norma Anderson. Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, love that, love that. Hello, welcome everybody. Petitioners, Norma Anderson, Priola, Camarada, Kaffer, Wright, and Castilian, eligible Colorado electors, bring this action under CRS, so Colorado Code sections here, to challenge the listing of respondent Donald Trump as a candidate for the 2024 presidential primary election ballot and any future election ballot based on his disqualification from public office under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Petitioners seek an order declaring Trump disqualified under the 14th Amendment and enjoining respondent Secretary of State Janet Griswold, the Secretary, from taking any action that would allow him access to the ballot. Petitioners respectfully request and are entitled to an expedited hearing on this petition. Introduction. Mr. Trump tried to overthrow the results of the 2020 situation. Before the situation, he made plans to cast doubt on and undermine the confidence in our nation's infrastructure. After the situation, he knowingly sought to subvert our Constitution and system of elections through a sustained campaign of lies. His efforts culminated on January 6th of 2021, when he incited, exacerbated, and otherwise engaged in a violent insurrection at the United States Capitol by a mob who believed they were following his orders and refused to protect the Capitol or call off the mob for nearly 3 hours as the attack unfolded. His efforts to overturn the 2020 situation and interfere with the peaceful transfer of power were part of an insurrection against the Constitution of the United States. Because Trump took these actions after he swore an oath to support the Constitution, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment prohibits him from being president and from qualifying for the Colorado ballot for president in 2024. Petitioners bring this action now to protect their rights of Republican and independent voters to fully participate in the upcoming primary election by ensuring that votes cast will be for those constitutionally qualified to hold office, that a disqualified candidate does not siphon off support from their candidates of choice, and that voters are not deprived of the chance to vote for a qualified candidate in the general election. Number 3. Adopted in the wake of the Civil War, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment imposes a qualification for holding public office in the United States. It bars from office any person who swore an oath to support the Constitution of the United States as a federal or state officer and then engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or gave aid and comfort to the enemies thereof, unless Congress removes such disability by 2/3 vote. Which, by the way, is the same amount of vote that it takes for an impeachment. Number 4, like other constitutional qualifications based on age, citizenship, and residency, Section 3 is enforceable through civil suits in state court to challenge a candidate's eligibility to hold public office, including the office of president. Neither Section 3's text nor precedent require a criminal conviction for insurrection or any other offense for a person to be adjudged disqualified, as leading constitutional scholars have confirmed. And then we have a footnote here. I won't spend much time on footnotes, everybody, just because there's so much content here. So this one, though, I think is really important. The sweep and force of Section 3, which was the Pennsylvania Law Review that had been published. This was the article that really kind of pushed everyone into saying, like, what's going on? Next, we have... Rather, Section 3 operates independently of any criminal proceedings and indeed also independently of impeachment proceedings and of congressional legislation. It applies directly and immediately upon those who betray their oaths to the Constitution. Number 5. Section 3 is a measure of self-defense designed to preserve and protect American democracy. Citation here from 1866, statement by Senator Willey. It embodies the 14th Amendment's framers' recognition of the grave threat that insurrection against the Constitution poses to the existence and integrity of our Union. Section 3 functions as a sort of constitutional immune system meant to keep those who have fundamentally betrayed the constitutional order from keeping or reassuming power. Citation here. The oath to support the Constitution is the test, the idea being that the one who had taken an oath to support the Constitution and violated ought to be excluded from taking it again until relieved by Congress. Donald Trump has failed this test. 4 years after taking an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution as President of the United States, Trump tried to overthrow the results of the 2020 situation, leading to a violent insurrection at the United States Capitol to stop the lawful transfer of power to his successor. By instigating this unprecedented assault on the American constitutional order, Trump violated his oath and disqualified himself under the 14th Amendment from holding public office, including the office of the president. And then a footnote here. In this petition, each photograph and accompanying caption are part of the preceding numbered paragraph. So just so you know, there will be some photographs here. I probably will, cover up some of the more disturbing images. That's just because I would cover my own eyes. So that's how I feel about that. The core facts demonstrating Trump's disqualification are a matter of public record. He dishonestly and unlawfully tried to overturn the 2020 situation results through multiple avenues. When that failed, he summoned tens of thousands of enraged supporters for a wild protest in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, the date that Congress and the Vice President would meet to certify the results of the 2020 election under the 12th Amendment to the Constitution and Electoral Count Act. Among those Trump mobilized for the January 6th were violent extremists and now convicted seditionists, whom he earlier instructed to stand back and stand by. Others were supporters of Trump and had inflamed for months with the lie that the 2020 situation would be rigged and was being stolen from them. Once his supporters were assembled at the White House, President Trump repeated the incendiary lie and directed them to march on the Capitol, knowing many were armed and prepared for violence. He urged them to, quote, fight like hell to stop the steal, stop Vice President Mike Pence and Congress from lawfully certifying the Electoral College votes, designating Joseph R. Biden Jr. as the 46th President of the United States. Before January 6th, Trump was told repeatedly by lawyers and top officials that Pence could not lawfully overturn the results, and Pence rebuked Trump's coercive demands to do so. Undeterred, Trump continued to exert public pressure on Pence. On January 6th, he put his own vice president in the crosshairs of what became a violent mob, stressing that if Mike Pence does the right thing, we will win. President Trump's mob went on to violently storm and seize the United States Capitol, a feat even the Confederacy never achieved during the Civil War. The mob forced Vice President Pence and members of Congress to flee for their lives and halt the constitutional duties. Their attack disrupted the peaceful transfer of power for the first time in American history. By 1:21 p.m., President Trump knew the Capitol was under attack, and Vice President Pence had announced publicly he would not overturn the results. While watching the assault unfold on television, Trump poured fuel on the fire. He sent a tweet at 2:24 p.m. targeting Pence for lacking the courage to overturn. The tweet caused the mob to surge and chant, "Do this with Mike Pence." It predictably exacerbated the violence that Trump knew was underway, something Trump knew full well would happen in response to the tweet. President Trump failed to take any action to stop the attack for nearly 3 hours as the mob ransacked the United States Capitol, brutally assaulted police officers, and called for this of elected officials. He refused to deploy a federal response or call off his mob, despite his affirmative constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed in his role as commander-in-chief of the military, including the D.C. National Guard. Rather than defending the Capitol, he exploited the violence and leveraged it to pressure members of Congress to further delay the certification. It was only after 3 hours of barbaric violence broadcast on television and repeated pleas from his senior staff and family that he posted a video at 4:17 p.m. instructing his mob to go home, adding that he loved them and understood their pain over that what was stolen from us. Many in the mob did not leave the Capitol grounds until Trump told them to, and Trump called off the mob only after it seemed clear they would not achieve his goal of stopping Congress's certification of the results. Later that night, the President of the United States justified his deadly attack on the seat of his own government, tweeting at 6:01 p.m., "These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots. Remember this day forever." President Trump was the mob's leader, and the mob was his weapon. The mob traveled from throughout the country to Washington because the president summoned them there. He instructed the mob to march on the Capitol and then complied. Many of the mob left the Capitol grounds only when, after hours of violence against police officers and interference with Congress's constitutionally mandated duties, Trump belatedly told them to leave. Through their flags, banners, clothing, and chants, the mob made clear they were there for Trump. Racism and white supremacy, the same virulent ideologies that led to the Civil War, and in its wake the 14th Amendment, pervaded Trump's insurrection and the movement surrounding it. Ahead of January 6th, Trump and his allies directed their false claims of election fraud at cities with large black populations, targeting and specifically identifying urban areas in Detroit, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and Atlanta. They sought to coerce and intimidate officials in those jurisdictions to invalidate the votes of millions of Black Americans. They falsely accused the Black election workers of ballot tampering, causing them to face threats of this and other racialized violence. And on the 6th, these people were among the first in the mob to breach the Capitol building, where they terrorized Black police officers with racial slurs and jabbed one such officer with a Confederate flag, a symbol of white supremacy in another failed insurrection against the United States. President Trump weaponized mob carried out the most significant breach of the Capitol building since the War of 1812. Their attack led to 7 deaths, injuries to more than 100 law enforcement officers, and more than $2.7 billion in property damages and losses. A Capitol police officer whom the mob had attacked died the next day, and 4 other officers died by suicide in the following months. The January 6th attack was the culmination of a multi-part scheme to use lies, coercion, intimidation, and violence against government officials to overturn the 2020 results. The threat was broad. It was directed at Republicans and Democrats alike. Targets included Vice President of the United States, federal and state legislators, election officials, and the Supreme Court. The goal was to unlawfully keep Trump in office, invalidating the votes of more than 81 million Americans who cast ballots for Biden in the 2020 election. All right, just one moment. Hydration break, everybody. Yes, there's a lot of information set out here. Again, this first part is the facts. They're putting those out before the legal arguments. This scheme to obstruct the peaceful transfer of power carried out under the public banner of Stop the Steal movement unfolded in multiple states in the lead up to January 6th, including Colorado. The denialism and political violence championed by the movement continue to pose an existential threat to democracy in this state and throughout the country. Indeed, a Department of Justice investigation found that workers in Colorado received among the highest number of potentially criminal threats in the nation in the wake of the 2020 election. And then we're just citing the FBI brief here. Voluminous public evidence and legal authorities established that the January 6th mob attack on the Capitol and surrounding events constituted an insurrection against the Constitution within the meaning of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. The evidence further shows that Trump not only engaged in the insurrection, but was its central cause. Citation here on the U.S. House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack. So they're specifically quoting their findings. None of the events on January 6th would have happened without him. See also here recommending enforcement of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment against public officials who engaged in the January 6th insurrection. That was the recommendation of that House committee, just in case anyone was wondering. Although Section 3 disqualification does not require a criminal conviction or impeachment for any offense, a federal grand jury has indicted Trump on 4 criminal counts relating to his efforts to subvert the 2020 results. Number 1, a conspiracy to defraud the United States in violation of Section 371, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding in violation of Section 1512K3, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding in violation of 1512C2, and conspiracy against citizens' constitutional rights to vote and to have one's vote counted in violation of Section 241. The statute originally codified after the Civil War to counteract political violence against newly enfranchised black citizens. See the first Klan Act, which was passed in 1870. Separately, a Georgia grand jury has indicted Trump on 13 criminal charges relating to the sweeping conspiracy to unlawfully change the outcome of the 2020 situation in favor of Trump through false statements, forgery, solicitation of public officers to violate their oaths to the Constitution, and other state felonies. Now she's citing the indictment here. A bipartisan majority of House of Representatives impeached Trump for incitement of insurrection, and a bipartisan majority of the Senate voted to convict him, with several senators voting against conviction and the final vote falling below the requisite 2/3 supermajority, based on the theory that the Senate lacked jurisdiction to try a former president. The bipartisan January 6th Select Committee and numerous federal judges have likewise recognized Trump's central role in the insurrection. Courts have disqualified officials under the 14th Amendment who played far less substantial roles in insurrections and who, like Trump, did not personally commit violent acts. This includes Corey Griffith, a former New Mexico County Commissioner who was a grassroots mobilizer, inciter, and member of Trump's mob on January 6th, but did not commit violent acts or breach the Capitol building, and Kenneth Worthy, who served as a sheriff in the Confederate state. He did not take up arms in the Confederate Army. If these individuals conduct warranted Section 3 disqualifications, then surely Trump does as well. Okay, again, I'm just making sure that our pictures are okay. Since the January 6th, 2021, Trump has publicly affirmed his disloyalty to the Constitution and his allegiance to the insurrectionists who seized the Capitol from him. He has called the insurrectionists patriots, vowed to give many full pardons with an apology if he becomes president again, financially supported them, released a song with a choir of convicted January 6 defendants called Justice for All, and hugged on camera a convicted January 6 defendant who has said that Pence and members of Congress who voted to certify Biden's victories should be executed for treason. Oh, that's not good. Oh, don't hug those people. We don't like that. Oh my gosh. 27. Trump has blamed former Vice President Pence repeatedly for the attack because Pence refused to violate federal law in his own oath to the Constitution. Trump also continues to propagate the lie he used to summon the mob to Washington. that the situation was stolen. In December of 2022, he disturbingly called for the termination of the Constitution to correct massive fraud in this thing. And he continues to fan the flames of political violence among his supporters against judges, prosecutors, and other government officials. He is precisely the threat to American democracy that the 14th Amendment's framers had in mind when they adopted Section 3's prohibition on constitutional oath breakers holding office. Here's a tweet. So, with the revelation of massive and widespread fraud and deception and working closely with big tech companies and the DNC, the Democratic Party, do you throw the president's results out and declare the rightful winner? But you just said throw out the actual results. What? Or do you have a new election? A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules. That's not true. Regulations and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Our great founders did not want and would not condone false and fraudulent elections. That doesn't even make sense. Because Trump swore an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution upon assuming office of the president on January 20th, and then engaged in insurrection against the Constitution on or around January 6th, he's disqualified under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment from holding any office under the United States, including office of the president. Despite his constitutional disqualification, Trump is presently a candidate under Colorado and federal law for the 2024 Republican presidential primary. The secretary has the power and duty to exclude constitutionally ineligible candidates from the ballot. Despite this duty, the secretary has not committed to excluding Trump from the primary ballot based on his disqualification under Section 3. Based on historical practice, the secretary will not independently investigate Trump's constitutional eligibility under Section 3 and exclude him from the ballot on that basis, absent a judicial order to that effect. So this is the key, all right? We need a judicial order, and then the secretary can proceed. Due to Trump's candidacy combined with his constitutional ineligibility, the secretary is about to commit, absent relief by the court, multiple actions in the process of granting Trump access to the ballot that are improper and constitute a breach or neglect of duty or other wrongful act in violation of the U.S. Constitution and Colorado law. There is an urgent public interest in promptly resolving whether Trump is constitutionally eligible to serve as president in advance of the approaching primary. Absent timely relief, petitioners and other voters will be irreparably harmed. Accordingly, under this section of the code and this section, petitioners seek an order declaring Trump constitutionally disqualified from public office under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment and enjoining the secretary from taking any action to grant Trump access to the ballot for the presidential primary or any other thing. Okay, anytime I'm starting to get any kind of freezing, everybody, that usually means I need to be more careful with my words. All right, so here are the parties. Miss Anderson is a registered voter affiliated with the Republican Party, resides in Colorado. She is an eligible person within the meaning of the code. Now, Miss Priola is also a registered person affiliated with this party and residing in Colorado. And Camarada is a registered person as well, affiliated with the Republican Party, residing in Colorado. Next, we've got Kafer as a registered person affiliated with the party again, eligible elector. Here's another one, Miss Wright again, who is unaffiliated. So we went through the ones affiliated with this party. Now we are unaffiliated. This one is also unaffiliated. As eligible people, petitioners have standing under Colorado law to challenge the constitutional eligibility of candidates for the 2024 primary. If an ineligible candidate appears on the ballot and petitioners will suffer an injury, in fact, to a legally protected interest under Colorado law because it would not be among eligible candidates. The Secretary of State would have violated her duties under the U.S. Constitution and Colorado law. The ineligible candidate would have affected the integrity and fairness of it, and the party could end up with an ineligible candidate on the ballot. If Trump is on the ballot, voters who would otherwise vote for petitioners' candidates of choice will instead vote for Trump, reducing the likelihood that the petitioners' candidates of choice will win the situation. And Republican could be deprived of the chance to do this for a qualified candidate in this. Respondent Griswold is the Secretary of State of Colorado and is sued solely in her official capacity as the state's chief officer. The secretary is responsible for overseeing access for candidates, including by accepting a major party's form designating a candidate as a bona fide candidate for president of the United States who's affiliated with a major accepting a notarized candidate's statement of intent together with either a non-refundable filing fee of $500 or a petition signed by at least 5,000 of these, and ultimately certifying and listing the names and party affiliations of these to be placed on any of these. Respondent, this person is a private citizen and a candidate under Colorado and federal law for the 2020 primary. Defining a candidate as one who's publicly announced an intention to seek office and thereafter has received a contribution or made an expenditure in support of the candidacy. Here we go. And then they go through and explain a little bit more about the candidate. I'm going to kind of maneuver around that, so I'll skip to the next piece here, okay? They're just talking again about how he is a candidate. He previously served as the 45th President of the United States from January 20th of 2017 to January 20th of 2021. He was a candidate in 2020. He appeared on the Colorado this in 2020 to gain access to this. Yes, I will switch over to my YouTube channel if I get bumped. Okay, everybody, just so you know. Just so you know. This party submitted to the secretary, and the secretary accepted approval form affirming he was a bona fide this and was affiliated with this. Trump thereafter submitted to the secretary, and the secretary accepted a notarized statement of intent together with a non-refundable filing fee and affirmed he met all of the qualifications. And we'll go to the next page here. I think we'll be okay once we get back into the facts again. I think I've just got too many trigger words on these pages here. Jurisdiction and venue. The court has jurisdiction over this action here, and the venue is proper. So here we go. We made it. We will dig into this factual background. All right. So we should be in a bit of a safer place. All right, before the 2020, he lays the groundwork to reject the results if he loses and deploy violence to stay in power. Sub A, he encourages violence, repeating during his 2016 this and his this. Encouraging and normalizing violence against his perceived enemies has been a hallmark of his political career, dating back to his 2016 situation. His persistent promotion of this helped to set the stage for this. During his 2016, he encouraged supporters to physically assault protesters at his rallies, and often they did. At a rally in Birmingham, Alabama, on November 21st of 2015, he demanded the removal of a protester, shouting, "Get him the H out of here, will you please? Get him out of here, throw him out." Video captured by CNN reporter shows that as he shouted from the stage, his supporters swarmed the protester, a black man, knocking him to the ground and then punching and kicking him. When asked about the assault on Fox News the next day, Trump justified the violence. Maybe he should have been roughed up because it was absolutely disgusting what he was doing. At a February 1st, 2016 rally in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, he instructed the crowd to knock the crap out of protesters who may try to throw tomatoes at him, promising to pay the legal fees for anyone who did. At February 22nd of 2016 rally in Las Vegas, Trump, he commented on a protester and lamented, "We're not allowed to do this anymore. I love the old days. You know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this. They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. I'd like to do this to his face, I'll tell ya." The crowd erupted in applause. A few weeks after he conveyed his desire to do this to a protester in the face, one of his supporters did exactly that. At a March 9, 2016 rally in Fayetteville, North Carolina, police were escorting a protester out of the rally when his supporter sucker punched the protester, a black man, in the face. That same day, he stated such violence against protesters was very, very appropriate, and that we need a little bit more of it. When asked again about the attack on March 15th, the 2016 debate, he acknowledged his supporters have anger that's unbelievable while denying any responsibility for their violent acts. Yes, going down memory lane, everybody. After taking office in 2016, he continued to encourage and normalize violence against perceived political enemies, now from the office of the president. On August 11th and 12th, these people descended on Charlottesville, Virginia, for the Unite the Right rally, where these people and other extremists protest the removal of Confederate statues and menaced residents with racist and anti-Semitic chants. A self-identified person deliberately rammed his car into a crowd of counter-protesters, killing 32-year-old Heather Heyer. When asked about these events at an August 15 press conference, he responded that some of these people were fine people, stating that there was blame on both sides, some very fine people on both sides. At an October 18th, 2018 rally in Montana, he celebrated then Congressman Greg Gianforte for violently body slamming a reporter in 2017, telling the cheering crowd, "Any guy who can body slam, that's my kind of guy." On May 9th of 2019 rally in Florida, he asked, "How do you stop migrants from coming to the United States?" A supporter shouted, "Shoot them." He laughed and minimized the overt call for violence, stating, "That's only in the panhandle. You can get away with that statement." The crowd cheered. His violent rhetoric against his perceived political enemies escalated in 2020, a tumultuous year in which the country grappled with COVID-19 pandemic, nationwide racial justice protests against police brutality, and the 2020 this thing. On April 17th, this person sent a series of tweets calling on his supporters to liberate 3 states with Democratic governors amid backlash that their COVID-19 policies. He first tweeted, "Liberate Minnesota." A minute later, he tweeted, "Liberate Michigan." Minutes after that, he tweeted, "Liberate Virginia and save your great Second Amendment. It's under siege." Ew. On April 30th, in what was a clear harbinger for the January 6th attack on the United States, here we go, turning the page. Capitol, hundreds of extremists swarmed the Michigan State Capitol to prevent the legislature from lawfully extending Governor Gretchen Whitmer's COVID-19 stay-at-home order. The extremists, many wearing pro-Trump merchandise and some armed with these things and wearing tactical gear and battle fatigues, stormed the Capitol building and chanted, "Our house and let us in," as they tried to breach the legislative chamber, but were held back by police. Among those in attendance were these people, a far-right extremist group with a history of violence and against political opponents. Extremists likened Governor Whitmer to this bad person, carried a sign that read, "Tyrants get this," and displayed Confederate flags, nooses, and dolls depicting bad things here. Yeah. Hydrate. Yes, one moment. We'll pause for a moment to hydrate. Let the algorithm calm down a little bit. He says hydrate. Oh, that's so sweet. Oh my gosh, that's so sweet. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Y'all are so sweet. I appreciate it. All right, here we go. Instead of condemning this armed mob that threatened violence against the governor during its intimidating occupation of the Michigan Capitol, he took the side of the extremists. He tweeted on May 1st, the governor of Michigan should give a little and put out the fire. These are very good people, but they're angry. They want their lives back again safely. See them, talk to them, make the deal. Several anti-government extremists were later charged and convicted of conspiring to kidnap Whitner just before this. Oh, 100,000. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. I seriously do. Thank you so much. As detailed in the year leading up to January 6th, the far-right extremists staged at least 9 similar events inside state capitol buildings across the country. January 6th report at 5:03. Members of this group and other violent groups joined these events. Participants in at least 4 of these state capitol incursions in Michigan, Idaho, Arizona, and Oregon later joined Trump's mob in attacking the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. On May 28th of 2020, he retweeted a video of Griffin, the founder of Cowboys for Trump, and then a county commissioner in New Mexico, saying the only good Democrat is this kind of a Democrat. Oh, that's awful. To a cheering crowd. In retweeting this incendiary video to his millions of followers, he wrote, "Thank you, Cowboys. See you in New Mexico." A state court later removed and disqualified Griffin from office under the 14th Amendment for helping to mobilize and joining Trump's mob on January 6th. So this is the precedent they are referring to here, all right? So this is important to note. This person participated and he was removed. So we've got a prior precedent. On May 29th, he threatened to deploy the military to Minneapolis to shoot looters and protests over the police of George Floyd, tweeting, "When the looting starts, the shooting starts." Oh, that's awful. When asked on September 29th, presidential debate to denounce this group and the violent extremists such as this group, he refused and instead told this group to stand back and stand by, later adding that somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left. In making these comments, he disregarded his advisor's prior recommendations that he publicly denounce violent actors such as this group of people. His words electrified this group of people, causing the group's membership to triple. The January 6th report is being cited here. This group chairman Enrique Tarrio wrote on the far-right social media site, "I will stand down, sir, standing by, sir." Senior person here posted on the same site. Trump basically said to go and do this. This makes... oh my goodness. Me so happy. These people quickly embraced Trump's stand back and stand by directive as a slogan and started selling merchandise with it that same night. Tarrio, Biggs, and 2 other leaders were later convicted of seditious conspiracy to oppose by force the lawful transfer of presidential power on January 6th. Cover that face up. Yeah. On October 30th, a convoy of Trump supporters driving dozens of trucks, calling themselves the Trump Train, surrounded a Biden-Harris campaign bus on a Texas highway and forced it to slow to a crawl, came within inches of hitting it, and slammed into a staffer's follow car. The confrontation led the Texas Democrats to cancel 3 scheduled campaign events due to safety concerns. 2 of the Trump Train's participants later settled a lawsuit for political intimidation under the Second Klan Act. He immediately celebrated this dangerous act of political intimidation. On October 31st, he tweeted a stylized video of the train confrontation and stated, "I love Texas." On November 1st, in response to the news, the FBI was investigating the incident. He tweeted, "In my opinion, these patriots did nothing wrong," and indicated they should not be investigated. Later that day, at a rally in Michigan, he again celebrated the incident, falsely stating his supporters were protesting Biden's bus because they're nice, and boasting they had hundreds of cars and the American flag. Yikes. Years of President Trump's encouragement and endorsement of political violence had a predictable consequence. It normalized for his supporters the idea of using violence, force, and intimidation against political foes. It also demonstrated Trump's knowledge of and support for threats and acts of violence by his supporters against his perceived political enemies, as well as the power of Trump's words to inspire such acts. He later would use the same call and response dynamic to mobilize a violent mob to attack Congress on January 6th. B. He sows the seeds of denialism before the 2020. At the heart of the January 6th insurrection was the inflammatory lie of stolen this. It was motivated by the nationwide Stop the Steal movement and mobilized tens of thousands of enraged supporters to descend on Washington, D.C. to violently disrupt the transfer of power. He was and remains the leading source of that lie, and he laid the groundwork for it well before the 2020 election. When asked at an October 19, 2016 debate if he would accept the results, he refused to answer. Instead, he said, "I will look at it at the time. I will keep you in suspense," and made unsubstantiated claims about the integrity of these things. Even after winning the 2016 but losing the popular vote, he falsely asserted that he would have won the popular vote if you deduct the millions of people who did this illegally. Throughout his presidency, he repeated the lie that widespread this cost him the popular vote. During the 2018 midterms, he falsely claimed 4 key races were being this against this. In November 9th tweet, he called for a new this in Arizona based on a fictitious corruption. His anti-democratic rhetoric intensified as the 2020 approached. He used the bully pulpit of the presidency. Hold on, everybody. You know, we've heard this term bully pulpit multiple times. Is everyone familiar with bully pulpit? Everyone knows what that is? Just trying to... Okay, yes, no, okay. So the president is the only person that has a bully pulpit, and it's basically stating the president's using a blowhorn or, in order to shout from his position as the president. So this is specific only to the president of the United States. So he was using his position here in order to go forward with that. Yeah, so there's a little trivia for you. All right, of the presidency, including his heavily trafficked Twitter feed to inflame his followers with one lie after another. During a July 19th interview with Fox News Sunday, he falsely claimed that the mail-in this thing, which several states expanded due to COVID-19 public health crisis, and that he himself had used, is going to do this to this. When asked if he would accept the results, he said, "No, I'm not going to just say yes. I'm not going to say no. And I didn't last time either." Amid polling showing Biden with double-digit lead over Trump, Trump sent a tweet on July 30th proposing to delay this to prevent anticipated voter this. Writing, "With universal mail-in this, not absentee this, which is good, 2020 will be the most inaccurate and this of this in history. It will be a great embarrassment to the USA. Delay this until people can properly, securely, and safely do this." At an August 17th campaign rally in Wisconsin, he stated that the only way we're going to lose this is if it is rigged. Oops, I said the bad word. Remember that. It's the only way we're going to lose this. The only way they're going to win is that way, and we can't let that happen. While speaking at the Republican National Convention at the White House on August 24th, he called mail-in this the biggest scam in the history of politics, accused Democrats of using COVID to steal this and defraud the American people, all the American people, a fair and free this, and repeated the lie that the only way they can take this away from us is if they rigged it. When asked at a September 23rd White House press briefing if he would commit to a peaceful transfer of power after this, he refused, stating, "We're going to have to see what happens. I've been complaining very strongly about this, and they are a disaster. Get rid of this, and you'll have we'll have a very peaceful, there won't be a transfer, frankly. They'll there'll be a continuation. Yikes. The ballots are out of control, you know it. On November 2nd, the day before this day, he criticized the U.S. Supreme Court for allowing Pennsylvania to extend the time for receiving mail-ins, tweeting that the court's decision was very dangerous, will allow the rampant and unchecked cheating, and will undermine the entire system of laws, and will also induce violence in the streets, imploring that something must be done. Yikes. Number 2, after the 2020, he refuses to admit defeat and inflames his supporters with the lie that this was stolen from them. From November 3rd until January 6th, he continued to inflame his supporters with false claims of this. He did so even after he exhausted legal challenges. The Electoral College formalized President Biden's victory on December 14th. And he was told repeatedly by the Department of Justice, his White House lawyers, and campaign advisors that there was no widespread fraud sufficient to change the outcome. A president falsely declares victory prematurely and pervasively spreads this. On this night, despite guidance from his campaign advisors that the race was far too early to call, he falsely declared victory while repeating baseless claims of this. In a speech from the White House, he stated, this on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We are getting ready to win this. Frankly, we did win this. We did win this. Bologna sandwiches. This is a major fraud on our nation. His decision to declare victory falsely on this night was a premeditated strategy. Before this day, counsel to the Vice President Pence, Greg Jacob, learned of the plan and drafted a memo on that day to Pence's Chief of Staff, Mark Short, advising against Pence's involvement in it. This is according to that report again. On that day, his outside advisor, Tom Fitton, said he had spoken to him about a draft statement sent to the White House Deputy Chief of Staff on October 31st, declaring victory and demanding that all of the process counting stops. This strategy was meant to take advantage of the so-called red mirage, the illusion of a Republican red victory in the early stages of counting, because they are more likely to go in person, and those are typically counted first, including swing states. This phenomenon was widely known prior to the 2020 and is played out in nearly every modern situation. In an October 31st audio recording, Trump advisor Steve Bannon described the strategy to a group of his associates as follows. And what he's going to do is just declare victory, right? He's going to declare victory, but that doesn't mean he's a winner. He's just going to say he's a winner. The Democrats, more of our people vote early that count. Theirs do this by mail, and so they're going to have a natural disadvantage, and he's going to take advantage of it. That's our strategy. He's going to declare himself the winner. If he is losing, he's going to say they stole it. As more mail-in these things were counted and results shifted towards Democrats, the red mirage faded, and his supporters became increasingly agitated by his false claims of this false business. On November 4th, based on incomplete early returns, he tweeted, "We are up big, but they are trying to do this with that. We will never let them do it." On November 5th, with his chances of victory dwindling, he tweeted, "Stop the count." Halting the counting of these at the point would have disenfranchised millions and violated federal and state laws. On November 7th, the Associated Press, Fox News, and other major news networks called this for Joe Biden. Trump refused to accept this. Reporting on November 8th, he tweeted, "We believe these people are thieves. The big city machines are corrupt." This was this. Best pollster in Britain wrote this morning that this clearly was a this. In the ensuing days, Trump's campaign team repeatedly told him that there was no evidence the election had this kind of problem and that he had simply lost. His campaign manager, Bill Stepien, and his team served as the truth-telling squad to him. debunking claims that didn't prove to be true. His campaign lawyer, Alex Cannon, informed Vice President Pence and White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows that he was not finding any evidence of this sufficient to change the results in any state. Similarly, Attorney General Bill Barr, acting as Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen, and other top Justice Department officials repeatedly told him in the weeks after the election that their investigation uncovered no evidence of this or irregularities sufficient to change the outcome of the results. Attorney General Barr relayed that findings to the press on December 1st. His White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, reached the same conclusion and forcefully told this to Trump over and over and over again. Forcefully, goodness. Undeterred, he continued to tweet out claims of this at a steady clip. For example, on November 9th of 2020, he tweeted, "Nevada is turning out to be a cesspool of these. These two people are finding things that, when released, will be absolutely shocking." The next day he tweeted, "People will not accept this thing." He and his allies frequently directed their false claims of this at cities with large black populations, including Detroit, 78% black, Atlanta, 48% black, Philadelphia, 41% black, Milwaukee, 39% black, and Pittsburgh, 23% black. In a November 27th tweet, he took aim at the politically corrupt cities of Detroit, Philadelphia, Atlanta, and Milwaukee. Okay, I see you. Thank you. Hold on, let's pause for a moment for hydration. Oh my goodness. Oh, we care. Oh, that's so sweet. Sometimes I just get sucked in, everybody. You know, these legal documents are my jam. I'm all about it. Oh, all right. Well, thank you so much for the kind reminder. I appreciate it. On December 13th, he tweeted that these people, below-age people, illegal immigrants, faked signatures, prisoners, and many others voted this way in Detroit, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Atlanta, Pittsburgh, and elsewhere. Meanwhile, the attorney Giuliani called for throwing out all of these in Detroit and falsely claimed that he would have won Wisconsin if not for this situation in Madison and Milwaukee. On November 12th, the Infrastructure Government Coordinating Council, led by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, also known as CISA, announced that the 2020 situation was the most secure situation in American history, and that there was no evidence that any system was deleted or lost votes, changed votes, or was in any way compromised. 5 days later, he fired his appointed CISA director, Christopher Krebs. In November and December of 2020, this paid about $1.5 million in total to two research firms, the Berkeley Research Group and Simpatico Software Systems, to investigate allegations of this. The group investigated allegations in 6 key states and found no evidence that would have affected the election results. The research group employees personally briefed him on these findings in December of 2020. Simpatico Systems investigated over a dozen theories and likewise reported that the theories were unsupported. He disregarded the findings of his advisors, the Department of Justice, senior administration officials, and the White House counsel's office. He instead turned to a new team of legal advisors willing to promote his outright lies and conspiracy theories, including Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, John Eastman, Sidney Powell, and Cleta Mitchell. Now, Cleta Mitchell, of course, has not been charged, but has played a significant role. They immediately went to work to try to overturn this. In November 14th, a strategy session with loyalists, Giuliani announced planned litigation to invalidate upwards of 1 million of these. Dozens, of course, rejected Trump's frivolous lawsuits, leading to disciplinary action and sanctions against his attorneys, and rightfully so. In their effort to overturn this in the courts, his campaign and allies filed 62 lawsuits in battleground states between November 4th and January 6th. They lost 61. That's a lot. Their single victory affected few votes, did not confirm any claim of this, and did not change the outcome of this in any state. Judges appointed by Republicans and Democrats alike, including several appointed by Trump, found no credible evidence of widespread this or irregularities. And they did not mince words in calling out the frivolous litigation for what it was, a dangerous attempt to invalidate a free and fair this. And then we're citing a case here. Free, fair, this are the lifeblood of our democracy. Charges in unfairness are serious, but calling this unfair does not make it so. Charges require specific allegations and then proof. We have neither here. Ooh, ouch. This campaign asked the courts to disenfranchise almost 7 million of these people. Then this court has been unable to find any case in which the plaintiff has sought such a drastic remedy in the contest of this in terms of sheer volume of votes asked to be invalidated. This court has presented with strained legal arguments. That's a lot of votes. That's a lot, everybody. That's really a lot. Without merit and speculative accusations, unsupported by evidence in the United States of America, this cannot justify the disenfranchisement of a single person, let alone all of these of the sixth most populated state. Attaching and affirming district court's decision, his allies did not prove under any standard of proof that illegal these were cast or counted, or these were not counted at all due to this. His attorneys ultimately faced stiff sanctions and disciplinary action for peddling his lies. A New York court suspended Giuliani's law license based on uncontroverted evidence that he communicated demonstrably false and misleading statements to courts, lawmakers, and the public at large in his capacity as a lawyer for the former president and the campaign, and that he made these false statements to improperly bolster his narrative that due to widespread this of the 2020 United States this was stolen from his client. The presiding disciplinary judge of the Colorado Supreme Court approved a stipulation to discipline Jenna Ellis, Giuliani's deputy, in which Ellis admitted that while serving as a senior legal advisor to him and as counsel for his re-election campaign, she repeatedly made misrepresentations on national television and on Twitter, undermining the American public's confidence in this. A federal district judge in Michigan sanctioned and referred... Hold on a second. I need to pull the citation. I've not pulled that case yet, everybody. Let me pull that to the side. So, because she will be going in Georgia here in a little bit, so I will pull her case. I don't think I've read the details of that particular case. There we go. Okay, a federal district judge in Michigan sanctioned and referred for bar discipline Sidney Powell, Lin Wood, and 7 other Trump-allied attorneys for bringing a suit in the court called a historic and profound abuse of the judicial process, meant to deceive a federal court and the American people into believing that rights were infringed. So let me, yeah, I try to watch the V word too, everybody. Let me just pull this citation as well. That could be a really interesting case to go through as well, especially because Miss Powell is due in court next week. So let's write that citation down. Sub 3rd, 680. All right, here we go. All right. Here we go. The California State Bar has brought disciplinary charges against Trump attorney John Eastman for engaging in a course of conduct to plan, promote, and assist then-President Trump in executing a strategy unsupported by facts or law to overturn the legitimate results of this by obstructing the count of certain states. A federal judge in California found that he himself likely made knowingly false claims on this under oath in this kind of suit filed in the federal court of Georgia. The California court cited an email in which Eastman said that the president had been made aware that some of the allegations and evidence proffered by the experts has been inaccurate, and that he signing a verification of the complaint with that knowledge would not be accurate. And then we're citing this case here. This is the Eastman case. Yet he and his attorneys proceeded to file the complaint with the same inaccurate information, and he signed a verification swearing under oath that the inaccurate numbers are true and correct, or believed to be true and correct to the best of his knowledge and belief. The court found that the evidence showed he knew that the specific numbers of voter fraud, of the specific numbers were wrong, but continued to tout those numbers both in court and to the public. Yikes. I lost track. I was just calculating in my mind how similar this is to the New York case, how the numbers were incorrect, but yet promised to be correct. I thought that was interesting. All right. His legal efforts to do this to that effectively ended on December 11th, when the Supreme Court issued a one-paragraph order rejecting a long-shot lawsuit filed by the state of Texas to invalidate this in 4 other states. He was fired up about the Supreme Court decision and was raging about it, according to this report. In private, he acknowledged that the decisions confirmed his loss, stating that the White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, "This is embarrassing. We need to figure it out. I don't want people to know that we lost." But in public, he continued to spread the lie that he had won, tweeting the next day, "So, you're the president of the United States, and you just went through this when you got more of this than any sitting president in history, by far, and purportedly lost. You can't get standing before the Supreme Court. So you intervene with wonderful states, but within a flash, it's thrown out and gone, without even looking at the many reasons it was brought. So this, and then fight on." Okay. These court decisions prompted him and his supporters, including violent extremists, to target the courts themselves, and detailed in front, the Supreme Court was the target of several Stop the Steal demonstrations in the lead up to January 6th, some of which followed Trump's tweets criticizing the courts. And this group chairman, Enrique Tarrio, considered a detailed plan titled 1776 Returns. You know, that was not actually a good year. You should do your research, people. To storm and seize control of the Supreme Court of the United States and other federal buildings in Washington, D.C., until demands for a new were fulfilled. Number 3. He leads a broad-based effort to pressure, coerce, and intimidate state and local officials to unlawfully do this to the 2020 situation. He continues to seek to overturn this after this formalizes his loss on December 14th. Article 2 of the Constitution, as modified by the 12th Amendment, governs the election of the president. Article 2 created the Electoral College, providing that the states would select electors in a manner provided by state legislators, and those electors would in turn vote for the president. Every state selects presidential electors by popular vote, and each state's laws provide for procedures to resolve disputes, including through lawsuits if necessary. After any issues are resolved in state or federal court, each state's governor transmits a certificate of ascertainment to the duly chosen electors to the National Archives for inspection and counting by Congress. The Electoral College meets in mid-December to cast their votes, which are then sent to and counted by Congress on January 6th. The Vice President, as President of the Senate, presides over the joint session of Congress on January 6th. The Vice President's role is ceremonial. He merely oversees the opening and counting of Electoral College fees provided by each state's governor. The President of the Senate shall, in the presence of the Senate and the House of Representatives, open all the certificates, and the votes shall be then counted. By design, the President plays no role in the Electoral College, or the certification process. nor is securing or perpetuating incumbency a function of the presidency. Rather, Article 2 of the Constitution, which defines the powers and duties of the president, is agnostic as to whether a sitting president is elected to a new term. On December 14th, the Electoral College met and cast each state's these for the 2020 this. He lost. The this was over. There was no longer a lawful avenue for him to overturn any of these. Senior administration officials and family members urged him to concede, but he refused. Instead of accepting this, he doubled down on delegitimizing the results and sought to obstruct the transfer of power by any means necessary. He pressures Republican officials in states he lost to illegally replace these people with illegitimate his people and to find these things for him. Pausing, just let me grab a drink. Hold on. One moment, everybody. All right, here we go. Even before the 2020, his campaign developed plans to unlawfully circumvent the results if he lost and appoint loyal people in battleground states with Republican-controlled legislators. After it had become clear his loss seemed all but certain, he and his allies began pursuing their state-focused plan in earnest. He personally led outreach to many officials in states he lost with Republican-controlled legislatures, including Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. These efforts included he and his allies using false claims of this to target communities where Black and Latino Americans did this in large numbers and falsely accusing these workers of ballot tampering. A key component of his pressure plan was to chastise uncooperative Republican officials as disloyal and even traitorous. Between the November election and January 6th, he and his inner circle engaged in at least 200 acts of public and private outreach, pressure, and condemnation targeting Republican governors, state legislators, and state and local administrators to prevent them from certifying his loss. His main targets were top Republican officials in Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. He personally pressured many Republican lawmakers and officials in states he lost to convene special legislative sessions to illegally replace these people with fraudulent his people. On Twitter, he publicly pressured individual legislators to demand this on decertification, referring to those who resisted his efforts as traitors. Not nice at all. You're right. That is not nice. Oh my goodness. All right. Hold on. I just lost my place, everybody. Okay, I found it again. Georgia was the central focus of his pressure campaign. On December 7th, Governor Brian Kemp rejected his calls to convene a special legislative session in Georgia to select a separate slate of these people for him, explaining that such an action would be unconstitutional and immediately enjoined by the courts. He responded by escalating social media attacks against Kemp in December of 2020. He posted an average of one tweet per day, either criticizing Governor Kemp or pressuring him to help him overturn this. For instance, on December 14th, he tweeted, "What a fool Governor Kemp of Georgia is. Demand this clown call a special session and open up signature verification now." On December 18th, he tweeted, "Governor Kemp of Georgia still has not called a special session. So easy to do. Why is he not doing it? It will give us the state. Must act now." His pressure campaign on Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger was even worse. Prior to January 2nd, he had called Raffensperger 18 times, but Raffensperger avoided the calls because of ongoing litigation against his campaign. When Raffensperger finally took the president's call on January 2nd, Trump repeated his false claims of this and asked him to find precisely the number of these that he needed to overturn these results in Georgia, stating, "I just want to find 11,780 of these." which is one more than we have because we won the state. He reiterated that request in other ways, such as stating, "Fellas, I need 11,000 of these. Give me a break." When Raffensperger refused, he accused him of committing crimes and threatened possible prosecution. These things are corrupt, which is totally illegal. It is more illegal for you than it is for them, because you know what they did and you're not reporting it. That's a criminal offense, and you can't let that happen. That's a big risk to you and Ryan, your lawyer. I'm notifying you and you're letting it happen. Yikes, everybody. We did go through that phone call a couple of times on lives. It's a lot. I might do another one of those with that phone call. It is really eye-opening. Reviewing the evidence surrounding the January 2nd call, a federal district judge ruled that his repeated pleas to Raffensperger clearly demonstrate that his justification was not to investigate this, but to win this through unlawful means. Again, we're citing that Eastman case. He unsuccessfully tried to enlist the Department of Justice to help overturn this in Georgia and other states. After striking out with Attorney General Barr, acting as Attorney General Rosen, and acting Attorney General Rosen and acting Assistant Attorney General Donahue, he enlisted the help of lower-level DOJ official Jeffrey Clark to do his bidding. After at least 2 meetings with him, which he did not disclose to DOJ leadership in advance, Clark drafted a proposed letter to the Georgia legislature, falsely stating that the department had identified significant concerns of this in the state, which it had not, and recommending a special legislative session to investigate the matter. After the DOJ leadership refused to sign the letter, he sought to sideline them by offering Clark the position of acting attorney general. Trump rescinded Clark's offer only after the DOJ leadership vowed to resign en masse if Clark was appointed. Yeah, that was a dark day for everybody. State officials who resisted his coercive demands made clear that Trump and his allies were urging them to violate their oaths to the Constitution. For instance, Arizona House Speaker Rusty Bowers said, "I and my fellow legislators swore an oath to support the U.S. Constitution and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona. It would violate that oath, the basic principle of Republican government, and the rule of law if we attempted to nullify the people's this based on unsupported theories of this." A Georgia grand jury has indicted Trump on 13 criminal counts, along with 18 co-conspirators, including Giuliani, Powell, Eastman, relating to the sweeping conspiracy to unlawfully change the outcome of this in favor of Trump. Trump Georgia indictment at page 14. Among those charges are 3 counts of solicitation of violation of oath by public officer, which assert that he unlawfully solicited Secretary Raffensperger and Speaker of the Georgia House of Representatives, David Ralston, to violate their oaths to the U.S. Constitution by illegally doing this with the results in Georgia. Trump causes waves of violent threats and intimidation against state and local election officials. His state-level pressure campaign ultimately failed, but the fallout was considerable. Officials who resisted his coercive tactics and workers across the country who simply did their jobs became targets of violent threats, armed intimidation, stalking, harassment, public demonization, spamming, and doxing. They and their families faced explicit threats of unaliving, bombing, and this kind of assault. Black election officials were frequently targeted with threats of these kinds of actions and other racialized violence. A striking example of this terror campaign came in Georgia, where Black officials, worker Ms. Freeman and Moss, mother and daughter, were inundated with violent and racist threats after he and Giuliani falsely accused them of tampering. And a federal court entered a default judgment against Giuliani in the Freeman and Moss defamation suit against him. After he touted these false claims about Freeman at a December 5th rally in Georgia, strangers came to her home and tried to lure her outside and with threatening emails and text messages. On advice from the FBI, Freeman fled from her home and did not move back for months. The concern was well-founded. A member of this group, militia, was later convicted of multiple offenses for his role in the January 6th attack, had a document in his home with the words, this kind of list written across the top. The only two names listed were Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. Ralph Jones, a black official who oversaw voter registration in Fulton County, Georgia, received death threats following this, including one calling him a bad name, who should be this, with another threatening to do this by doing that, which is also awful. So we're covering that up, okay? Another election worker in Georgia, Lawrence Sloan, was forced to go into hiding after Trump and his adult sons falsely accused him of destroying these things. Michigan State Representative Cynthia Johnson, a black woman, was threatened with this kind of action after she challenged witnesses that Rudy Giuliani presented to her committee. Secretary Raffensperger, one of Trump's top targets, frequently received hostile messages directed towards him and his wife, some in the form of these kinds of attacks. The secretary's wife canceled visits from grandchildren after someone broke into their daughter-in-law's house, and after police found self-identified members of this group outside the Raffensperger home. This is pretty awful, everybody, isn't it? Let's take a moment to acknowledge the complete awfulness of this, going down memory lane again. So we pause for hydration. Yeah, it's pretty awful. It's pretty awful. Another official targeted by Trump, Arizona House Speaker Rusty Bowers, faced armed protesters at his home, with protesters honking horns, shouting into bullhorns, and calling him a bad name. Let's change the word. The administration offices in 10 Georgia counties received email threats of these kinds of things, and they were warned that would make the Boston these kinds of things look like child's play, and that this and this would persist until Trump is guaranteed to be POTUS. State and county officials in Colorado were inundated with violent threats after the 2020 and continue to face them. After publicly opposing Trump's 2020 lies, Colorado Secretary of State Jena Griswold received hundreds of threats on social media, including a Facebook message that read, "Watch your back. I know where you sleep. I see you sleeping. Be afraid. Be very afraid." Oh, that's awful. And an Instagram comment that read, "Penalty for treason. These two horrible things. You can pick, Griswold. 2 men have been criminally charged and convicted for making violent threats to the secretary. She now travels with a security detail." Oh, that's awful. Oh, that's really bad. I didn't realize that. Now, keep in mind, she's named as the defendant in this case with Trump. All right? So just keep that in mind. On November 5th, he tweeted, "Stop the count." During this same period, this group and other supporters held armed and intimidatory sorry everybody protests outside the ballot counting centers as poll workers counted these for the 2020, including Nevada, Arizona, and Michigan. At one counting center in Detroit, demonstrators angrily pounded on doors and shouted, "Let us in, stop the count," but were held back by police. Yeah, I think they're doing a decent job of trying to work on anonymity, but one day at a time. He was aware of the violent threats he was inspiring, which were widely reported in the media, and ignored pleas to condemn them. At the December 1st press conference, the Georgia Secretary of State, Chief Operating Officer Sterling, made an impassioned plea calling out him by name and warning his rhetoric was going to get someone this, Sterling said. And then here is a direct back and forth. A 20-something tech in Gwinnett County today has these kinds of threats, and this put out saying he should be this for treason because he was transferring a report on batches from an EMS to a county computer so he could read it. It has to stop. Mr. President, you have not condemned these actions or language. This has to stop. We need you to step up. My boss, Secretary Raffensperger, his address is out there. They have people doing caravans in front of their house. They've had people come onto their property. Trisha, his wife of 40 years, is getting these kinds of threats through her cell phone. It has to stop. This is the backbone of democracy, and all you who have not said a damn word are complicit in this. These kinds of threats, intimidation, it's too much, it's not right. Mr. President, it looks like you likely lost the state of Georgia. You need to step up and stop inspiring people to commit potential acts of violence. Someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to get this. Someone's going to get... Oh, yikes. Cliffhanger. Unalived. President Trump saw the video of Sterling's statement on Twitter, and in a retweet of the video, doubled down on the very lies that Sterling warned could get someone unalived. Show signatures and envelopes, expose the massive this in Georgia. What is Secretary of State afraid of? They know what we'll find. I'm not even going to be able to say any of these words in his tweet. So here's another tweet that he had here. All right. It's not good. It's not good. We'll just leave it at that. It's not good words being used here as we go through continuing the facts here. All right. I'll take one more break here for hydration. Number 4, he oversees a scheme to send fake slates of these people to Congress and pressure the vice president to unlawfully obstruct the January 6th certification proceeding based on those fake slates. As his litigation and state-level strategies failed, he turned his focus to January 6th. This was the date on which a joint session of Congress, with Vice President Pence presiding as President of the Senate, would count these cast on December 14th and certify the results under the 12th Amendment of the Electoral Count Act. His January 6th strategy depended on Vice President Pence. Trump lawyers Kenneth Chesebro and John Eastman devised an unlawful plan in which the vice president would, contrary to established legal authority and precedent, refuse to count certified electoral votes from 7 states that Trump lost: Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Under this plan, Vice President Pence would point to so-called competing or dual slates of these people from those 7 states to justify either disregarding those states' legitimate people in counting the votes or halting the vote count and sending the slates back to the states. But there were no valid competing slates from the 7 states. Instead, Republican officials sent false slates of these people to Congress and the National Archives as a pretext for Vice President Pence to unlawfully disregard the real these for Biden. He privately and publicly pressured Pence to carry out this plan, despite being told it was unlawful. Reviewing the evidence surrounding this scheme, a federal district judge found it is more likely than not that he committed 2 federal crimes. 1, corruptly attempting to obstruct the joint session of Congress on January 6th in violation of this code section, and conspiring to defraud the United States by disrupting this in violation of this code section. Federal and Georgia grand juries have criminally charged him for his role in the plot, including his unlawful solicitation of Vice President Pence to violate the U.S. Constitution and federal law by rejecting the valid these. The Michigan Attorney General has charged 16 of Trump's Michigan fake people with various law and forgery felonies. That's a lot. That's a lot of people in trouble. The fake electors plan was an unlawful, unprecedented, and destructive break from the process that led directly to the violence that occurred on January 6th. Trump oversees the fake elector plan. The plan emerged from a series of legal memoranda written by the campaign lawyer Chesebro, with Trump's lawyer Eastman later taking on a more prominent role. His White House staff and campaign began operationalizing the fake elector plan in early of December 2020, the week before the college would meet on December 14th. By December 8th, he was pursuing and driving the elector plan. He personally enlisted the Republican National Committee assistance. White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows confirmed in a December 8th text message that they planned to convene these people in key states that Trump had lost and transmit false certificates to Washington, D.C. The campaign filed lawsuits in certain states to supply a pretext for convening the fake electors in those states. In later litigation, a federal district judge found that he had filed these lawsuits not to obtain legal relief, but to disrupt or delay the January 6th congressional proceedings through the courts. That's a huge finding, by the way. That is a huge holding by this court. On December 14th, the date when the true certified electors were meeting to cast these for Biden in Nevada, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, New Mexico, and Pennsylvania, the fake electors convened in those states to sign fake electoral college certificates. In some states, those orchestrating the fake elector engaged in acts of subterfuge by meeting in secret, lying to security guards about what they were doing, and instructing participants to keep details confidential. The fake electoral certificates signed in Nevada, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, and Michigan falsely declared the Trump electors to be the duly elected and qualified electors from their states. This declaration was false because the signatories had not been granted official status by their state government in the form of a certificate of ascertainment. Here we go, next page. On the evening of December 14th, RNC chairwoman Ronna Romney McDaniel forwarded the recap email to his executive assistant, conveying the illicit scheme had been formalized. She wrote, President Trump's electors voted in the contested states, to which President Trump assistant replied, "It's in front of him." 5 of the fake certificates were then transmitted to Congress and the National Archives, who later deemed them invalid. The fake Michigan and Wisconsin electoral certificates never made it to the vice president, despite failed attempts by Trump's team to deliver them through members of Congress. Oh, that's creepy. He exerts intense public and private pressure on Vice President Pence to rely on fake electors to unlawfully obstruct the January 6th proceeding. Beginning in December of 2020, with the greater frequency as January 6th approached, he pressured Vice President Pence in private and public to obstruct the proceeding based on his illegal President of the Senate strategy. At the December 21st White House meeting with Trump and Vice President Pence, several members of Congress urged the Vice President to reject Biden's electors from one or more of the 7 contested states. On January 25th, when Pence called Trump to wish him Merry Christmas, he pushed Pence to reject these from certain states. On January 6th, Pence resisted, stating, I don't think I have the authority to change the outcome. By early of January 2021, Vice President Pence's counsel, Greg Jacob, concluded that under the Electoral Count Act of 1887 and the 12th Amendment, there's no justifiable basis to conclude that the Vice President has authority to affect the outcome of this. Pence agreed with that view. As Jacob later testified, the Vice President's first instinct when he heard this theory was that there was no way that our framers, who abhorred concentrated power, who had broken away from the tyranny of George III, would ever have put one person, particularly not a person who had a direct interest in the outcome because they were on the ticket for election, in a role to have decisive impact on the outcome of the election. And review of text, history, and frankly, just common sense all confirm the Vice President's first instinct on that point. Indeed, if the theory were correct, recalcitrant vice president could single-handedly decide who becomes president. On January 6th of 1993, Dan Quayle could have kept George H.W. Bush in office. Or on January 6th of 2001, Al Gore could have made himself the president. Ooh, good points. Despite Vice President Pence's opposition, Trump and his allies exerted intense pressure on him to unilaterally overturn the results on January 6th. On January 1st, wait, hold on. Just a minute, everybody. On January 1st, Trump called Pence and berated him for opposing a lawsuit seeking judicial declaration that the vice president had constitutional powers to reject or return votes to the states. Pence responded that there was no constitutional basis for such authority and that it was improper. He replied, "You're too honest." At the January 4th Oval Office meeting with Vice President Pence, President Trump and Eastman sought to convince Pence that he had the power to disregard certified people from states that Biden had won. Eastman acknowledged in President Trump's presence that his proposal violated the Electoral Count Act, that it was not supported by precedent, and that the Supreme Court would never endorse it, and that the fake elector slates upon which his plan depended were invalid. Trump and Eastman nonetheless pressed Pence to carry out the unlawful scheme, and Pence refused. Trump then resorted to public pressure. At the January 4th rally in Georgia, he accused radical Democrats of trying to do this with the election, adding that we're not going to let it happen. Then he shifted focus to Vice President. "I hope Mike Pence comes through for us. If he doesn't come through, I won't like him quite as much." Oh, it's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. At 11:06 a.m. on January 5th, he tweeted to his tens of millions of followers amid a flurry of other tweets spreading lies that Vice President has the power to reject fraudulently chosen electors. That same day, Trump summoned Pence for a one-on-one meeting at the White House, where he again pressured Pence to overturn the election on January 6th. Pence again refused. Trump grew frustrated and told Pence that he would have to publicly criticize him. Upon learning this, the Vice President Chief of Staff, Mark Short, was concerned for Pence's safety and alerted the head of the Vice President's Secret Service detail. Yikes. Later, on January 5th, Trump, Pence, Jacob, and Eastman held a call during which Eastman asked if the vice president would at least be willing to consider sending the electors back to the states. Pence said, "I don't see it," while stating his counsel would continue to hear out Eastman's theories. That evening, the New York Times published an article titled, "Pence said to have told Trump he lacks the power to change the results." The article accurately reported that Vice President Mike Pence told President Trump on Tuesday, January 4th, he did not believe he had the power to block congressional certification of Biden's victory in this, despite Mr. Trump's baseless insistence that he did. Later that night, Trump issued a statement disputing the Times' report. The statement was filled with lies. Trump falsely claimed that Vice President and I are in total agreement, that the Vice President has the power to act, and that our Vice President has several options under the U.S. Constitution to unilaterally overturn the illegal and corrupt results. Yet again, Trump used falsehoods and public pressure to try and sway the Vice President, who Trump knew was not in total agreement with him. His allies, including political advisor Steve Bannon, amplified the public pressure on Pence in a lead-up to the January 6th. The pressure campaign on Vice President Pence came to head on January 6th, when tens of thousands of enraged Trump supporters from across the country answered President Trump's call to assemble in Washington, D.C. to stop the steal. As detailed, Trump repeatedly directed his supporters' anger towards Vice President Pence that day, including after he knew his mob was attacking the Capitol and threatening the lives of Pence and others. The violence on January 6 was fueled by President Trump spreading the lie that the election outcome had not yet been determined, and that Vice President Pence had the power to deliver victory for him based on his slates of fake electors. That lie, along with Trump's other lies about election fraud, led tens of thousands to travel to Washington, D.C. to intimidate Vice President Pence and, when he did not succumb, to storm the Capitol and call for his murder. Okay, everybody, I'm noting the time and my voice, and I am so sorry, but I'm going to have to do part 2 tomorrow. I just don't have much voice left. I can feel it starting to break on me. So I apologize so much to everybody here, but we can pick up right where we left off then tomorrow. But yes. So I think, again, to summarize, they're going through the facts. They continue to go through the facts. And then next we'll really get into those legal arguments, which are exceptional. So I will absolutely be back again tomorrow, everybody. Lots of tea tonight. And I will finish the second part of this. We may also have an order then from the judge out of D.C. So I thank you all for joining me tonight. I sincerely appreciate this. Yes, you can download this. This is available online. Let me pull the first page up here. This is the name of the case here. And if you just put in Anderson versus Griswold, this will come up. You'll also find the docket. 3 a.m. here. Yes, good night, Deborah. Thanks for coming by. Yes, thank you, everybody. I usually get a little bit of a warning when my voice is about to go, so I just wouldn't want to force anyone to have to listen to that. But you can pull up this case online. You can bring up the case itself, and then there is also a full docket that goes through everything. So I will be back again tomorrow, and I will finish the second part of this up for everybody, and then kind of do an overview at the very end. So yes, 200,000 likes. Oh my gosh, thank you, everybody. Oh, so thank you. So thankful. And of course, to my moderators, I'm very, very thankful for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And to all my moderators that are here, could you message me and let me know if you will be able to join me on Friday? Oh my gosh, thank you. I have something very special planned, and so I want to just make sure my moderators are available. So please let me know. I would really appreciate that. So yes. Well, thank you, everybody, again for coming by. I appreciate it. And it will be 7 o'clock Central Time tomorrow. So always a pleasure, everybody. Always a pleasure. Love to see it. Love to see all of you. And I'm very thankful. So we'll see you tomorrow, everybody. I will go and have some tea. So take care. Good night, Kristen. Always a pleasure. So have a wonderful night, everybody. Thanks again for coming. I really appreciate it.